A middle-aged man who was standing a few feet away, swaying, coughed and made a retching noise. Mary leant over the tube track and watched as the rat stopped stock still. It sniffed the air, then suddenly powered up its haunches and darted into a crumbling hole. The action reminded her of the rodent that had made a similarly speedy, though wholly unexpected, appearance in Fleur's dining room just 8 weeks ago. What a fiasco that had been. They'd had a couple of regular customers in, too, big spenders. And that woman who looked like a hairdresser but actually reviewed restaurants for some city living blog. Because of her, Ratty's debut had been extremely well publicised. In the following months, bookings had taken a real hammering. It was only in the past week that they'd managed to reach the level of custom they needed to break even. Which is why today had been so devastating. At about noon, she'd received a blistering phone call from one of their best customers, an American businessman wooing China, who was threatening to sue. He was so wound up she'd called in her dad, and he was not best pleased. Had to stop what he was doing and go and see the guy in person. But there was nothing else for it. These were exceptional circumstances. Last night the customer had spent an absolute fortune on Fleur, ordering up the finest wines, arranging for Seth, the chef, to create a particular Chinese starter that he believed would impress the delegation and seal his big deal. Those who had partaken of that oriental delicacy, it turned out, had all gone down with food poisoning. Mary seriously felt sick herself when she got off the end of that phone call. "Did they also have the fish?" she'd asked, then cringed and slapped her forehead, grateful that there was no one else in the office to hear. She shouldn't have said that. Her father told her never to admit liability. Let them prove it, was his motto. But she'd not been able to stop herself blurting it out. Not that it mattered. One had gone for guinea fowl, another had indeed consumed the sea bass, but then 2 of the others who had also become ill were vegetarian. It was the second irate call of the evening. She'd managed to deal with the first without seeking help from Dad. That had been from a young man who she'd never seen before. His date had ordered the sea bass and started chucking up in the taxi home. Very embarrassing for all parties. And yes, they'd pay the cleaning bills. It didn't make sense. 4 different dishes, same symptoms. It had to be a hygiene issue, not food poisoning, which was worse, really. She shuddered and looked at the rail again. It was vibrating. A train was on its way. She'd have to have that conversation with Seth on Monday, before her dad got to him. He could be quite formidable. But then again, this kind of thing was the death kiss to restaurants, and as chef, Seth really should be taking responsibility for standards in his kitchen. They certainly paid him enough, and she couldn't have eyes and ears everywhere all the time. The thought of the inevitable confrontation made her feel totally and utterly fatigued. Like most good chefs, Seth was talented, imaginative, and a total prima donna. There would be tantrums and swear words, denials and counter-accusations. Plates might even be broken, but it would have to be done. She was just relieved that she hadn't had to face him tonight. She'd been slightly cowardly and left a note on his workstation, telling him they needed to speak when the restaurant reopened Monday morning. That meant, she thought, as the train trundled out of the tunnel and along the platform, she had 34 whole hours to spend with Tom. She didn't want to be thinking about Seth now. She wanted to be thinking about Tom, and how his face was going to light up when she showed him the beautiful cashmere jumper she had bought to celebrate their 12-week anniversary. He'd tell her she shouldn't have, but she'd tell him he deserved it, and that she'd taken note when he'd muttered about being cold in